arts teacher in one of our illustrious sons of the soil of Portland, Port Antonio, Harbour Street, across from Anglican Church. Honorable Justice Roy Anderson is going to continue in the format of being our storyteller, our resident fact checker, and overall, I hear from all his fans out there that he was a very good crooner, was a very good singer in school competitions. And I think his request, I think he still has a manager who kind of just feel the requests and kind of work on his itinerary and his schedule. Right, so I hear that you're the life of the party when they want some good love songs and all that, some good soothing melodies. Yes.
Long ago and far away.
Long ago and far away. So like the title of a Luther Vandross song.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so with that, sir, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Having spent your entire school years from infant to the end of high school, what are some of the highlights you recall during this time? And a quick follow-up, because I'd like for you to expand on this. Who are some of the persons who stand out in your memory and why?
Okay. Well, thanks again for having me on, Paca. It's just a great thrill to be part of this this experience and to share, especially with those who came a little bit after me and who probably didn't make the connection. I was actually in Port Antonio yesterday and remembering where I grew up. Of course, the house is no longer there. Those of you who knew my mother's house when past there now, you look the other way because it's so distressing not to see that house there. But that's how the world is. Things change.
Yes.
But things that some of the things highlights that I remember. I think one of the things that stands out in my memory is that my entire school year from schooling from infant school through to end of high school was spent on the same premises.
Wow.
And in those days, it was really 4 different schools because as you entered the premises, there are then just the 2 main structures. We have several other structures now, but the 2 main structures over the arch, joined by the arch. On the lower level of the right-hand building was the infant school. Then upstairs that building was the intermediate school. The headmaster, which was a guy named Mr. Brown, but who was called John Crook. Then over to the lower side, on the other side of the building, was the elementary school or the primary school, which properly was called the Port Antonio Upper School. And then upstairs was the Titchfield High School. So I, as I say, I spent all my years there. And one of the things that I remember is that as I went through infant school, you start at class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. And if you graduated, you went up to the intermediate school, to second standard, first standard and second standard, and went over to the elementary school for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Because most people never went beyond 6th standard. But I was, most people just went to primary school. But I remember being among a group of about 8 of us, including people like my late friend, my oldest friend, who are no longer unfortunate, was Chet Wright. Chet and I were among about 7 people who skipped from class 4 right over to 3rd standard. So that was one of the highlights of our school career. Myself, Earl, a girl named Aline McFarlane, Sheila Young, Cutie Parker. Many of you know Carleen Parker. Carleen was one of those people, and a few others. And we went we never experienced John Crook as a principal at all. Went straight over to 3rd standard, where we had either Mrs. Dunn, and those of you who remember what we used to call her, and then Mrs. Leiber were the 2 3rd standards. And then we went to 4th standard, where we had the late Mrs. Beckford. Then was named Miss Bessie Ferguson. And then the 5th standard, where we had Mrs. Young, later called Mrs. Pearson. And then those of us who stayed, Earl and I and a couple others, went from 5th standard to high school, and he passed what was then called scholarship exam. So that was another highlight. So we didn't get to experience Mrs. Sykes, the mother of the now President Chief Justice of Jamaica, was Mrs. Avis Atkins Sykes, who was then the teacher in the sixth standard. So I didn't get to actually sit under her tutelage, but she of course continued to have some impact on the lives of those of us who were at the elementary school. So skipping over intermediate, some of the other things I remember that kind of just stand out. When I was at high school, having rifle shooting, keeping the rifles in the staff room. And on a Saturday morning, a bunch of us who were in the rifle shooting team would just go up, get the staff room key, go in, take out the staff, get the bullets, and go on the range.
Can you imagine that now, sir?
Can you imagine? I mean, nowadays rifles like that are locked away. We had the cadet rifles on the premises as well.
Yes.
And of course, now you can no longer have those.
Right.
I remember being in rifle shooting. There was a guy named Bernard Cridlon, who was like the captain of the Jamaica rifle shooting team to the Commonwealth Games, who would come and do coaching for us. And of course, we were one of the few schools outside of Kingston who took part in what was called the Perkins Shield for shooting rifle shooting competition. We're one of the few schools outside of Kingston that played hockey at Titchfield, because most schools didn't play hockey. Everybody played cricket and soccer, but few people played hockey. Netball, of course, we always played. So that was another highlight for me, working with Mr. Bernard Cridlon, who, as I said, was a real legend at rifle shooting, not only in Jamaica, but in the Commonwealth. Another highlight for me, because you recall, as I have said before, my generation, those of us of my vintage who went to school in the late 40s and early 50s, we are that link between the post-Second World War generation and the independence generation. And we were existed at that time when colonialism began to be phased out. So one of the things I remember is that the Reverend S.C. Bastable was the last white minister from England who came to the Baptist Church in Port Antonio. I remember that very vividly. And it was when he left to welcome the first Black Jamaican minister, the Reverend Fergus Lewis, who eventually became president of the Jamaica Baptist Union, and who is probably also more well known as the father of Professor Rupert Lewis, one of our eminent Garvey scholars and Black history scholars of this and any generation, Rupert Lewis. So, to have been part of that transition, at the same time, I also recognize that the singing talents that I later on suggested I had, first discovered by Mrs. Bastable, who was I think as a 7-year-old boy, and at Sunday school she said, "Look, we're having anniversary and we want to have you sing." And sing, what was that? But that was where my singing started, and I continued to do it even to today. As I mentioned to you, I sang at the Caribbean Community Retired Persons virtual Valentine concert a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
So it's been that starting point as a kind of bittersweet memory. The end of the white pastorship of the Baptist Church in Port Antonio, and the beginning of my own singing career. That also other things I remember. I remember first of all, as a very young child, must have been 4 years old myself, and most of you know the Edwards boys, Sparrow and Wesley and so on. Well, the eldest brother, Roddy, who was about my age, a couple of months younger than I was, Roddy and I were victims of typhoid. There was an epidemic of typhoid in about 1945. I'm giving my age, but I've told you that already. So we were in adjoining cribs in the Port Antonio Hospital. That's my first time being there. But one of the things I remember when I think about the hospital is that Port Antonio Hospital is one of the first places that had X-ray facilities.
Is that right?
Oh, yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Indeed.
It was indeed. And there was the famous doctor there, Dr. Sinclair Ferguson, who was in fact Mrs. Beckford's uncle, Miss Bessie Ferguson, as I said, no, Mrs. Beckford, mother of Cheryl and her brother who recently passed. Sir Reverend Dr. Sinclair Ferguson was eminently, he was a graduate of Howard back in about the 1920s or so. a great Jamaican, had a son who ran track for Monroe, and I was standing quarter mile named Earl Ferguson. Got into some trouble later on in his life, but we won't go down that road.
Right.
But as I recall about the hospital, one of the things, my earliest memories having come out of hospital as a young boy, going back to visit people, friends who were in the hospital and so on, is remembering how scared I was to walk past the morgue, which was you pass the morgue just before you got to the main private hospital.
Tell me about that, sir. Tell me about that. My mother used to just take shortcuts all the time because
exactly right. It's interesting. We talk about taking a shortcut, which is the one from West Street, but it was more difficult to get up there than to walk on the road.
Shortcut take blood and long shot take time or something
like that. Take it, you know.
But we're going to continue the story because we're pushing up a little bit. Time. And I know we have a lengthy discourse to go. And even though we had promised that we're going to have a 4-part series, I think we might have to go out to a 5th part. Your stories are so interesting. You know, one of the things I find, you know, interesting about what's happening here is that when I grew up from French Avenue, we'd go to infant school, and then the next big deal was to go to primary school out of Carter Park, out of Park School here, and they will leave and go teach fee. So it was this journey. Now, when you tell me about everything happening under the one roof,
absolutely.
Different experience.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the generation behind me, and so on, would have experienced 3 steps.
Right.
4 steps. You know?
Right.
So it's very, very interesting. So the stories are abounding, you know, and for that, I can't express enough gratitude. And I think we're going to have to extend your time here. So
we're going to have to spend some more time on this.
Yes, man, because there are some characters within our community that bear some reference, even though, you know, whether it was sporting or music or whatever, that bear some reference, and how they overarchingly they influence the wider.
Absolutely.
So with that, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you, sir, for giving us just a synopsis, because if we were to go into detail, we wouldn't have enough time, you know?
Yeah, we definitely wouldn't have enough time.
Yeah, and I want to just mention, there's a gentleman that I went to school with. His name is Michael Moody. He and his wife, Sonia, developed a nice product, a jerk seasoning called Portland Authentic Jerk Seasoning. And this has been launched about a year or 2 ago, and now they're making big strides. They had a major export to England a couple of weeks ago. And I want to just take this opportunity. Michael went to school with me. He's from Norwich. The product is called Portland Authentic Jerk. Portland Authentic Jerk. It can be found in your popular supermarket, whether it's in North America and or locally in Jamaica. They can be reached at 876-933-1792. That is 876-933-1792. Portland Authentic Jerk at gmail.com. And he guarantees that there are no preservatives in this product. The preservatives are embedded in the seasoning, the natural seasonings out of Portland, and the methodology used from the original place that jerk has taken over the entire universe. That's the boar's head in Publix with jerk turkey. Now, when I came to America, things like jerk food was never sold. Things like oxtail was being thrown in the garbage. No, oxtail is $15 a pound. $15 a pound. So we have to understand how the influence we have, whether it is Portland, whether it is Westmoreland, whether it is Falmouth, whether it is Lucy, whether it is Mandeville, wherever it is that we're from that small little 2x4 we call an island of Jamaica. The influence that we have had in every aspect of life, from academia to, from, you know, what I'm calling, you know, from head cook to bottle washer. And all
my friend Earl, right, as I have blessed memory, who was one of the brightest guys I came across in my entire school year, was also developed a jerk sauce in Toronto some years ago. Yes, and he supplied all of the Jamaican people in Toronto with jerk sauce that he made himself.
So just
And
remember,
interesting,
the whole concept of jerk food is bust down. And just one quick little anecdote here, there was a man named Tippy. Friday night when Tippy, and them times you don't have no microwave, you don't have no gas stove and corners, Tippy come down with a hot pan. I have taste. And the jokes are abounding about Tippy and etc. It's how wine food is so tasty and all that. But jerk right in a Port Antonio, right out of Senator after, right in front of Mark. Right at the bottom, William Street. Port Antonio, Portland. So once again, thanks for supporting what we're doing. We're going to be doing storytelling at every level of storytelling. To kind of just take away from the standard that's been delivered to us through the internet. And we're going to continue with this. I'm hoping that we can share and exchange the ideas that we have. And a lot of people have reached out to me on many levels about some things that they'd like to see happen. But with time, we will definitely approach some of the ideas that people have put out to us. Once again, thank you.
Okay.
As I always say, walk good and take it easy.
Bless you, my brother. Bless you. God bless. God bless.
Take care.
Pick up Portland jerk pork. Don't I tell you, the Boston jerk don't taste so much like jerk pork anymore. But